What if I told you the royal family has been holding on to a secret so delicate, so explosive, that even Buckingham Palace couldn't put out a statement without making it worse? What if I told you that in the quiet of one unrecorded night, a woman who was once the Queen Mother's closest blood link walked into Clarence's house with a velvet box and handed it not to the current queen, but to the woman the monarchy now quietly believes will save it? Today you're going to learn why Princess Alexandra chose Princess Catherine over Queen Camilla, what was really written in the Queen Mother's private note, why the palace tried to scrub the visit from its own records, and how this single act has just reignited an old, very real, very personal divide inside the House of Windsor. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to answer the question the royals never wanted the public to ask. Who did the Queen Mother truly trust to carry her legacy? Let's start where the silence began. When word started circulating inside palace circles that Princess Alexandra had privately handed over a set of the Queen Mother's personal jewels to Princess Catherine, everything went quiet. No statement.
No clarification. No angry denial.
Just that heavy, royal silence that always tells you one thing. It's true, but nobody wants to talk about it. Because these weren't just diamonds. They were decisions. They were loyalties. They were proof that even from the grave, the Queen Mother is still picking winners. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to know who Alexandra is. She's not an attention seeker. She's not a leaker. She's one of the last of that old-school royal generation. Disciplined, discreet, loyal to the crown before herself. She doesn't do impulsive. So if she took the Queen Mother's jewels, pieces that were believed to have been kept separate from the normal royal inventory, and personally delivered them to Catherine, it wasn't kindness. It wasn't nostalgia. It was obedience. She was carrying out a promise. Here's what palace insiders have whispered for years. Toward the end of her life, the Queen Mother became very intentional about her personal pieces. Not the tiaras everyone can borrow. Not the state jewelry controlled by the monarch. Her own things. The pieces tied to memories, to wartime, to motherhood, to duty. She believed those items shouldn't just go to the most senior woman. They should go to the right woman. And the right woman, in her mind, was not necessarily the one sitting beside the king. Picture the scene the way it's been described in those hushed, careful retellings. Clarence's house.
Late. No cameras.
No rows of staff. Alexandra arrives with a velvet box marked with the Queen Mother's initials.
No announcement. No fanfare.
Catherine is told Alexandra wishes to see her privately. And in that room, no courtiers, no press secretaries, no equerries. Two women stand in that strange royal tension between duty and destiny. Alexandra opens the box. Catherine, not quite understanding the scale of what's happening, assumes it's a loan, a gesture, a memory. But Alexandra, frail but unshakably clear, tells her what no one else has ever said out loud. It's time. Those few words are where the whole story turns, because if it's time, that means a clock has been running. That means this wasn't random. That means the Queen Mother saw something coming decades ago and put a safeguard in place for it. And that safeguard wasn't a committee. It wasn't a council. It wasn't the king. It was a woman she trusted to know when the moment had come. Now here's the part that sent shockwaves from Windsor to Buckingham. Camilla was bypassed completely. Not warned. Not included. Not even mentioned. That is not how royal inheritance is supposed to work. Even with personal items, there's an expectation of courtesy, of hierarchy, of at least pretending everyone's on the same page. But this was targeted. This was surgical. This was the Queen Mother's line reaching forward in time to say, I choose her. Why would the Queen Mother do that? To answer that, we have to go back decades, to the final years of her life. The Queen Mother was not naive. She had seen abdication. She had seen scandal. She had seen ambition dressed up as love. She had seen how quickly the monarchy could be pulled off its center by one person who wanted attention more than they wanted service. And she is said to have warned, privately, that one day the crown would be forced to choose between preserving its soul and maintaining its structure. Between the woman who had the title and the woman who had the grace. According to those who were closest to her, the Queen Mother kept a private annex to her wishes. Nothing grand, nothing typed, nothing meant for the archives. Handwritten notes. Instructions. Names. Reminders of who could be trusted with the things that weren't just expensive, but meaningful. And in those final conversations, she gave Princess Alexandra a task. Hold onto certain pieces. Do not let them fall into the wrong hands. And when you see the woman I was talking about, the one whose dignity survives scrutiny, whose humility survives fame, whose loyalty survives humiliation, give them to her. Not to the nearest queen. To the right, Queen. Fast forward to today. Who fits that description? Catherine. The woman who married into chaos, got photographed at her worst, got ripped apart by tabloids, was pitted against other women, and never once fired back publicly. The woman who has played the long game with patience. The woman who, to the public, still represents the last clean strand of royal dignity. That's the one the Queen Mother was betting on. When Alexandra placed that velvet box into Catherine's hands, it wasn't only emotional. It was political. Because in that act, the Queen Mother's generation was basically saying, the spiritual line of succession does not match the official one. The crown may sit with one woman, but the legacy sits with another. Now let's talk about what was in the box, because this is where it stops being rumor and starts being royal warfare. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a brooch that royal watchers have been asking about for years. The one the Queen Mother wore at Elizabeth II's coronation. The one she sometimes called her guardian of the throne. It hadn't been seen in public for decades. It was believed to be locked away. But it wasn't locked away. It was held back. Held for someone. And when Alexandra handed it to Catherine, she reportedly said, "These belong to you by blood, by grace, not by title." That sentence right there, that's dynamite. Because that is a rejection of hierarchy. That is a rejection of who married whom first. That is a rejection of she's the king's wife, so she gets everything. That is the Queen Mother, through Alexandra, saying, the real inheritance of this crown is moral, not marital. And then came the second shock. Because alongside the jewels, Catherine found something else, a folded parchment sealed in wax. A note said to be taken directly from the Queen Mother's private diary. No officials.
No registrar. No archivist.
Just one royal woman safeguarding the last words of another. To the future queen who wears grace, not pride. That's how it was reportedly addressed. That line alone explains everything. The note, according to people who have heard it paraphrased, spoke about service over spectacle. About the danger of ambition in the modern age. About how the monarchy survives not by being loud, but by being pure. About how the greatest threat isn't public anger, it's internal corrosion. To serve the crown is to surrender oneself to grace, not ambition. That's the line that has been echoing through palace corridors ever since. And nobody had to say Camilla's name. The contrast was obvious. Now, obviously, once Catherine had the jewels, once Alexandra had left Clarence's house, once the guard's logbook mysteriously got updated, this was never going to stay buried. Staff talk.
Aides talk.
And within hours the story reached the people who were always going to be the most offended. Camilla's team. To them. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't a sweet gesture from an old aunt. This was an ambush. Because what does it say when the queen consort, the woman actually on the throne beside the king, gets passed over for a private, personal, sentimental inheritance from the king's grandmother? It says, she was never one of us. It says, your title is official, but your place is conditional. It says, we accepted you publicly, but we did not endorse you privately. Insiders say Camilla was furious. Not performative rage. Real, wounded. Why am I still fighting this battle rage? Because you have to remember, her entire royal life has been about legitimacy. About proving she belongs. About outlasting the criticism. And just when she thought she'd won, just when she'd been crowned, just when she had the throne, she finds out that somewhere in a locked drawer, the Queen Mother was still saying,